Welcome to Tech Ascent, the podcast where we dive into the trends, strategies, and success stories that are reshaping the tech landscape as we know it today. I'm your host, Oliver Clingain. I'm also the founder of Ascension, the premier business development partner within tech. Today, we've got a very exciting guest joining us, joined by Francisco Martin-Rayo, the co-founder and CEO of Helios AI. Francisco, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. It's good to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you on. Would you mind telling us a little bit about your background and what the mission is behind Helios AI?
Yeah, absolutely. I started Helios AI with my co-founder, Eden John Millar, over 2 years ago now. And I had come from a background of, I was running kind of AI businesses as the chief commercial officer at Deep Labs. Before that, I had run big digital transformations at BCG. And then my co-founder had come from a background of, she was a senior AI ML engineer at Google, had won the Abby Award, all that stuff.
Awesome, awesome. And you mentioned it there, started kind of in the digital transformation space, moved to the AI space. Now you're the co-founder of Helios AI. How has the landscape kind of shifted over the past few years? What kind of big trends have you seen?
I mean, it's been extraordinary. I remember when I was first doing digital transformations, that was a lot of like, hey, we're going to help you implement SAP. I worked with a company once that spent, I think it was $1 billion implementing SAP globally. It was like the CEO's big thing, and then CEO left and people stopped using it. It was a really interesting kind of use case. But I remember at the time, it was a lot of, how are we using this enterprise software to make things a little bit better? And then you got into like RPA, right, robotic process automation, to make those tasks a little bit better, which is like and you can't even compare it to AI agents, right? But they have similar uses. Um, we had this hypothesis when we started the company and we started thinking about it, 2.5 years ago, that what we were seeing in artificial intelligence was something unique in our professional careers. It was something we were not going to see as transformative at another point in our careers. And I have just, even from like we're an AI company, right? Like Eden came from Google where she was working on Gemini. We've had access to these cutting edge technologies for a while, even from our perch. It's just extraordinary what you can do today and how fast it's changing. Um, you know, uh, just from a CEO perspective, we typically don't hire junior data scientists anymore because that work has disappeared, right? You now have co-pilots to do that. You would need to hire kind of much larger SDR staff, sales development representatives. That job has also disappeared because now you have AI to help you do it. And so the speed at which you're able to be so much more productive is really amazing, and how easy it is to use a lot of these technologies. I am an excellent prompt engineer, which is surprising to everybody, including myself. But how easy it was to become a really good prompt engineer has been um, kind of a nice surprise, right? In a way that it didn't require 5 or 7 years of deep coding expertise and being able to know a bunch of different languages. It just requires kind of that practice and a particular way of thinking.
Hmm. Yeah, and it sounds like you've kind of learned a lot through your experiences, and AI is just something that's the most recent. What other kind of big learnings have you seen in this space, whether that be as from a leadership perspective, a business growth perspective? What kind of challenges have you overcome being in the AI space?
I think one of the best pieces of feedback I got was, we launched, so Helios Artificial Intelligence is a company that predicts agricultural disruptions in the price of agricultural commodities. So just for some background, right? So if you're Walmart, who we work with, we help you look at your risks across your global supply chain. We help you predict, where a price is going to go up, where you're going to have big disruptions, and you're not going to be able to source your everything from soy, corn, wheat, spinach, tomatoes, etc.
Hmm.
So that's the background. I'd say almost a year and a half ago, we launched Cersei, which was the world's first virtual supply chain analyst. You could ask her all these questions. What are the biggest risks to my supply chain? What's the impact of El Nino, et cetera, et cetera. It was awesome. We got really cool press. We raised a ton of money around it. And, Oliver, people didn't love engaging with it. And so we had this conversation with our customers at the time and said, well, why don't you love engaging? And they said, we don't want to come and ask the same questions to this virtual analyst. Can you just put this analysis, hyper custom, blah, blah, blah. into an email and send it to us and make sure it gets to our inbox once a week. And so the big learning for us there, and it has really shaped how we go to market and how we think of product development, is you can't, just because the technology is there, even if it's super, super cool, you cannot force it on your customers. And so you always want to keep in mind, what is the problem that we are helping to solve for our customers? And how does the technology help to get us there? And not, hey, there's incredible new things we can do tech-wise. Just adopt the new technology and get with it.
No, that's awesome. And that's something we've heard from other kind of AI tech founder CEOs is sometimes there's that gap between what you think is cool and what's needed. And then there's
Yeah.
also that added gap of educating your prospects, educating your users about kind of that value proposition. Without sharing your secret sauce, Francisco, what ways do you guys put in place? What strategies do you have to educate prospects about the value of your technology?
It's a really good question, and we're always working on it. One of the things that we pride ourselves on is we're the only company in our space that is self-onboarding. Anybody, anywhere in the world can go to our website, put in a credit card, and start using the software. And we take you through a really good onboarding process that asks you questions about the commodities and the regions that are most important to you, so that when you finally launch your dashboard, you're only seeing the things that matter to you. Then we've got this kind of relatively intricate user flow and tooltips and all that. We're always available to talk to customers, but one of the things that to me is still amazing, right? You'll go to some of these SaaS companies on their website and you have to get qualified. You have to go talk to an SDR, and then the SDR puts you in touch with an AE, and you're weeks in before you even know what are they going to charge you, what does the product look like, et cetera, et cetera. So we really are an AI first company, and one of the ways we support our customers is saying, just come and sign up, right? You don't have to sign up for a year-long product. You can sign up for a month. If you hate it, tell us why. We'll probably make it better. But you don't have to, you don't have to wait 6 weeks for a human being to reach out, and you don't have to commit to a year. So really, how can we make it as easy as possible for you to use the product?
That's a great advantage you guys have built. And with that, Francisco, we've spoken with lots of leaders across the AI space. You're the first one in the agricultural kind of commodities section. What made you pick that? And for the audience, or not only the audience, but myself as well, what does that competitive landscape look like?
Yeah, we mean this apolitically. We had two hypotheses when we started the company. One was we've really bungled climate change as a society. I think that's unfortunately been proven correct, especially over the last 2.5 years, right? Last year was the hottest year on record. First time on average temperatures were 1.5 degrees centigrade, higher than we expected. There's all the scientists that are coming out and saying the impacts of climate change are a lot faster and more negative than even we expected, and we don't know why it's accelerating. So that was one big hypothesis. We said it's not going to get better, right? No matter how many Davoses you have and climate weeks and all this, fluff. We are moving toward a new environment where the climate is changing. You're going to have a lot more volatility. We thought that agriculture was going to be one of the places that was going to be hit hardest. At the same time, to be much more positive, right? We've talked about this. This is the most exciting time in our professional careers in terms of what's happening in artificial intelligence. And we knew that in addition to you have better access to weather data than ever before. 5 years ago, you could probably start a company that had a better weather model, or you had some constellation of satellites that had weather information. That's done. Those companies are bankrupt or they've been bought out. Weather information is now table stakes, which is wonderful for companies like ours, right? So the real value is, what are you doing with that weather information? And so what we looked at, we said, all right, there's a world where you're going to have a lot more climate volatility, price volatility, incredible impacts to the agricultural space globally. Could we start to build an AI platform that predicts where these disruptions are going to happen and eventually where prices are going to go, using a lot of the new tools, using a lot of the information? And so really that's what we did.
So you've combined two very powerful trends in the one to put together Helios AI. There's been lots of other, essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
There's been lots of other shifts that we've seen in the market because of technology upgrades, more efficiency. You mentioned there you don't necessarily need to hire junior data engineers and kind of SDRs. Where do you see that going in the future? What are the sort of big shifts do you see?
Hey, I made my career uh, building insights, right? I worked at a hedge fund advisory for the first few years after I graduated. And then I went to a distressed hedge fund, and then I ended up at BCG doing consulting. Um, but most of my career has initially was building out those insights, and then I think it switched to building out artificial intelligence products. One of the places that I think AI has really upended, if you look at the landscape today, right, most of the best paying jobs are almost insight based or knowledge based positions. Can you summarize this? Can you tell me what you think about that? Can you report on this? That is what generative AI does best. And so I think it is this transformation of the labor landscape where a lot of the positions that we have valued the most, like lawyers, for example, you don't really need lawyers in the way that you used to, right? You probably need them for litigation. You might need them at the margins for negotiation, but for 90% of the things in terms of building out contracts, et cetera, an artificial intelligence platform can do that a lot better than you can, than your lawyer can. And so I think we are in the middle of this transformation of, the people who built their careers and their expertise on these levels of insight, especially the more junior folks, that's going to start to disappear. I do think if you've been doing law for 15 or 20 years, if you pair yourself with a Harvey or an AI agent of sorts, you're probably going to do very well. But if you are just starting in one of these um, professions that are insights based, right, or analysis based, and you don't have that level of expertise where you can actually add much to generative AI features, then I think you're in for a lot of pain.
Hmm. It's definitely an uphill battle. And
Yeah.
something you shared there, Francisco, is as a successful entrepreneur, you said you started in the hedge fund space, moved into the AI space. With that, you've got to constantly be learning, kind of essentially leveling up, stacking skills. What skills are you working on leveling up right now?
Ooh, for a long time, if you looked at your general career progression, you would go from being an individual contributor, right? And then from an IC to managing teams. And then as you got more senior in your career, you would manage teams of teams, right? Um, there were certain places where that wasn't the case, right? You could become a real expert data scientist or a neurosurgeon, etc. But broadly, that is how you kind of accelerated. A new skill set, I think, is how do you become a manager of people and AI agents? And what does that skill set look like? So instead of managing 10 SDRs, you're managing 10 different AI agents that are, running individual, lead gen campaigns for you. Um, I think that's a skill set that I'm transparently still working on. I think it's a brand new space.
Hmm. No, for sure. And you mentioned it there. Do you actually use kind of AI SDRs and for your outreach?
We do, yeah, we do a lot. It's been interesting. I think the world that I come from, that Helios works in, right? We sell to hedge funds, and then we sell to kind of procurement teams for these, um, your Nestle's and your Mondelez and your Walmarts and all that stuff. Um, it is still a world that has not necessarily been touched by technology in the ways other parts of industry have. So we've had customers ask us if they could upload their WhatsApp chats to my platform because those are their contracts. They'll say, yeah, we'll take whatever $50 million worth of mangoes, and that's your contract, right? It's a very relationship based industry, and so we do use AI SDRs, but a lot of the leads we actually get is just word of mouth, and we show up to the conferences and we ask our customers to refer us to other customers and all that.
Hmm. Makes sense. So that was going to be my next question is like how efficient, because I know just the AI space in general is hyper competitive on its own. You being in kind of a unique space, how those kind of SDRs are performing. So that was my next.
Yeah, they're okay. I'm sure you do as well, right? Like I probably get 20, 30 LinkedIn pings, right? Most of them, I'm sure, are from bots a week.
Hmm.
Hey, do you need X or Y, or how do you differentiate? I've actually had to lock down my LinkedIn pretty aggressively, where you can add me, but only if you have my email and stuff. And so if I'm feeling that, and we're a successful startup, but we're a small startup, I can't even imagine what like a category manager at Unilever is seeing. And so I think that's the space that's still really moving, right? If you can now do custom outreach at scale, well, then everybody's going to do it. And then how do you differentiate yourself in the market? Does it actually require you to go back to phone calls? But then you can have AI agents do the phone calls for you.
Hmm.
So that's why I get, I don't know, 10 to 15 spam calls a day,
Hmm.
at least a day. Right. So in my phone, I now like any number that's not saved directly goes to voicemail. And so I think we're all, I think it will become harder to engage prospective customers. And I think what will end up happening is there will be an over reliance on folks that you meet in person at conferences and kind of referrals from other customers. Or surprising, SEO. So people who are, instead of you reaching out, people who are actively looking for this type of solution. That's been pretty successful for us. Our SEO is pretty good.
No, sounds like it. And I think I'm 100% on the same page as you. Is kind of there's that evolution of marketing. People are starting to get more involved in those conferences as well. Then there's also kind of those unique outreach strategies that still do find their way to work. So super interesting. And with that, Francisco, we've talked about a lot. You've built a great company with Helios AI, being the co-founder, CEO. For any other founders, entrepreneurs in the tech space growing your company, what's kind of one piece of advice you'd give them? Or even if you could rewind and give yourself one piece of advice on day one of starting Helios, what would that piece of advice be?
I mean, this is really trite, but you really have to find that balance between listening to your customers and figuring out where the market is going to be. We were really lucky. One of our first customers was they sell a lot of French fries around the world. And we're like, this is awesome. This is exactly the customer you want off the bat. And we basically built our MVP to their specifications. I mean, other people could use it, right? But we said, well, these are the 72 features that this company has wanted, and we launched it with them. And then it turned out they didn't want that at all. And one of the mistakes I think we made is you really have to have conversations about the problem and not about features. Um, that has been really key. And I think the other, so as other folks that are listening to this podcast, right, as they're building out their companies, you really, really want to understand what is the problem that you're solving. Really have a deep dive into that, and then start to think through the features. Because sometimes a lot of customers don't know uh, what the right features are going to be because they don't exist yet, especially in brand new spaces.
Great piece of advice. And Francisco, I got one last question for you before we wrap up. We've talked about your experiences, your past. Let's look to the future now. What's the goals for Helios AI? What's your vision for the company?
My hope is that we get to relaunch Circe, our virtual supply chain analyst, as a true kind of analyst. And then we get to move our customer base to the point where they say, you know what, I'm going to think of Circe as just another procurement analyst on my team,
Hmm.
and she becomes a true AI agent. That's what we're driving for. So we got a lot of stuff coming out this year, but
Hmm.
that's going to be the big push for us.
Awesome. I might need to double down on that one. What in the landscape do you need to see happen for Cersei to become the go-to analyst?
I think you need her to provide very clear value uh, very early on and get a couple of really good case studies around it.
Hmm.
So that people say, maybe in a couple of weeks you'll see value, and of other people who've already gotten value from that. I think the industry is changing so much and it's so competitive that customers don't have the same patience, I would say, as they used to. I mean, it used to be we'd say, yeah, we'll pay you 50 grand and, 3 to 6 months and we'll build it together and we'll see where it lands. That's gone. That they say, we'll pay you 50 grand, but it better work on day one and we're not going to sign up for an annual contract yet. And, where's the value? And 4 weeks in, if you haven't proven any value, you're done. And so that speed is really helpful in terms of pushing the team. But you got to prove that value really fast.
Yeah, no, I love it. Proven value is it's a big aspect, and that could have been a piece of advice on its own. But Francisco, I'm not doubled down on any more questions, so that's all I got for you today. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate you coming on the show, and I'm sure the audience does as well.
Yes, thanks, Oliver. It's good to be here.
Bye bye, Francisco. Thank you.